rise, divine rising. Blessed be to your day. May it be everything you require to create everything that you desire. And I want you to stop being Mr. and Mrs. Salty. I want you to stop being Mr. and Mrs. Salty. One thing that I learned in my shadow work, in my learning, in my applying, in my lesson plans that I give to myself and I give to my clients and I give to others was the corresponding effects of being Mr. Salty or Mrs. Salty. And I learned this through urges, temptation, things of that nature. I learned that when I would be frustrated, upset, angry, and I would be displacing it, that I would use the corresponding, something that didn't have anything to do with it technically, but I would use the corresponding effects of others to provide criticism disguised as counsel. I would use criticism and disguise it as counsel. All based on me not, when I become frustrated, when I become angered, when I become avoidant. This is one of the things that we do a lot of the times, and it's actually called antagonist feeding. Remember, everything down here you feeding off of. It's called antagonist feeding. That means when you're frustrated, and let's say, give you an example, you are having a conversation with somebody, and earlier on, they told you no. Like, they said no, or they gave you a reason. They could have gave you a reason to whatever they said to that space. And instead of you dealing with it in that time of exploring why you feel that way, what you use is called antagonist feeding. That means you use emotional responses. You feed through emotional reaction. It's something that we've all done. It's something that I've done. It's something that you have to learn. You use an emotional response. I'll use some of the most common ones that we use, that I've heard women use. Like when they be like, oh, you must be gay, or, oh, your dick too little, or, bitch, you must be scared of real niggas, or things of this nature. That's antagonist feeding. That moment in time when you sitting there and you like, hey, red dress, hey, red dress, hey, red dress, hey, blue dress, hey, sundress. And then she ignore you, and then you immediately go through a reaction period of saying, fuck you too anyway, bitch. Or you see a nigga in gray sweatpants and he walk by and he don't say nothing to you, and then you automatically go back with a reaction like, nigga, you must be gay, or something to that. That's antagonist feeding. That's antagonist feeding. Your frustration, since you're avoiding the frustration, or you're avoiding this element in yourself to why this temptation, or you're trying to feed that urge, instead of trying to take it to the highest aspect of thought, you'll sit there and you'll displace it and then feed off of it, to still feed off of it. Remember, energy does not die. It simply is rerouted and put in different conduits. One of the biggest things for us when we do this a lot of the times with ourselves is you'll be sitting, I remember you can be sitting at the house feeling salty about something, your job ain't doing right, or your man ain't doing right, or whatever it may be. Your chick didn't cook that day, or something to this narrative, and then you get stuck in this antagonist feeding. That means everything that you see, similar to like when you go on Google and you look up Priceline trips, and then you go on your Facebook feed and you immediately go feed that identity. Remember, everything that you do, that when you're in a state of avoidance, or not dealing with the trauma, or not dealing with the event, is building an identity. It's building on, or it's creating a new identity. So when I ask my clients this question, how many identities have you built? How many identities have you built? And why you built these identities? It's all based on staying within the aspect of comfort. It's a prismatic effect. I dropped that TikTok video earlier today. It's in my story. We have this prismatic view. That means the moment that we're told not to do something, the moment we're not told not to do something, the moment we're said we can't do something, the moment that we say, and then we want to displace against it, then we go into antagonist feeding. That means if I can't get it from this space, I'm going to go get it from somewhere else. If I cannot get the energy fed to me through this space, I'm going to go over here and get it. We can do that unconsciously. You do this unconsciously all the time. If you got an internal conflict going on in your own life, in your own personal life, if you're not dealing with it, that means you leaving it bottled in, that emotion bottled in. I can guarantee you that, and the thing about distractions, that we don't break down distractions, the thing about it is, once you go into that space with yourself, you will automatically find 9 times out of 10 a delightful distraction that fits that space. And the longer that we go into these spaces, remember we talked about these props and green screens in our lives. Peace. The longer that we go into this thing that puts us into this space, the longer that we seem to need more antagonist feeding. That thought form needs to live. So now you've been feeding this way your entire life based on those traumas, the traumatic event. A lot of us that have not dealt with our traumas, we not getting into our shadow work, we not getting into this healing. It becomes these excuses where we are trying to provide counsel. Well, I tried to tell them, but they didn't want to listen. The best way to honor the thought is if I tell somebody, yo, you need space and time to heal. One of the things that I noticed, we have this smothering effect. That means once we say it to somebody, friend, family, whoever it is, you'll say it to somebody, and then you dishonor the gift of offering that space to them. For a fear of like, if I step away too far, then they gon' what needs to happen is going to happen regardless. Let it work. I remember there was a lot of times for myself, like I'll be at my job and like I would tell somebody like, you need to do this, and this. And then I was guilty of it because then my natural reaction was to go back not even 5 minutes later, 10 minutes later, and I would try to stay on them about doing it. But I was always this same feature of always trying to go, yo, did you do it? 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 But then I had to realize for myself, I was like, where did I learn that from? Where did I learn that from? Going back into inner child work, I remember when my pops, when they were like, the family computer, see, y'all don't know about that, right? The family computer was in the living room, and my pops were like, even though my pops was calling himself trying to learn what I was doing or trying to learn, he would like be directly over me like this, hovering over me, waiting for me to looking at what I'm doing. Now I would get irritated. I would be sitting there irritated like this. What's this old man go out and cut the grass? What's this old man go out in the backyard somewhere? Never really expressing it out loud. Never really saying like, excuse you? Is there a reason that you're standing here? I didn't know how, that developmental thought. That going undealt with. This aspect going undealt with myself, in my own healing, in my own work. I noticed that I would do that to others. I noticed that I would be always in this state of antagonist feeding, in whether it was relationship, friendship, at the job. I was always stuck in this space of antagonistic feeding. That means I was feeding off of their narratives. They're feeding off their negative narratives. I would say I tried to give them the game, but they didn't want to listen to it. In order for me to give you a lesson, I got to provide the space for you to learn that lesson. You got to be ready for it. That's how the space is. That's how that circuit is completed. You got to be ready to do it. I can't force you to come to the Lake Minnetonka, and you sitting there, yo, this is the best water, it's going to be cleansing. I can lead you to it, but I can't make you drink from it. I can show you the book, but I can't make you read from it. I can't make you understand it. And this is one of the biggest factors when it comes into our healing work with ourselves, is allowing ourselves that space and creating that space, creating that gap, giving that offering. The next time that you see somebody and you say, sis, bruh, fam, cuz, yo, you need some time to yourself to heal. You need some time to yourself to recollect your thoughts. You need some time to yourself to do this, this, and this. I'm going to give you that time. Honor the thought by saying, I'm going to give you that time. Step away. They're either going to sink or they're going to swim. They're either going to sink or they're going to swim. If they're in the space when they're ready for it, if you're the instrument that they're going to use, if you're the tool or the vessel that is to be used for them to learn that lesson, they'll come to you. Don't rush it. One of the things that I had to learn about in your healing process is stop trying to rush it so you can get to a result. The gift is not inside of the result. The gift is in the work. The gift is in your path. The lesson is in the path, not the result. A lot of times we come into this space with ourselves in this awakened sense, and we're looking at the result or the conduit that gave us the reflection of our awakening, our opening, our healing, and we try to stay attached to that and feed to that. And the way that we feed through that is that antagonist feeding. That means we try to negify everything about it, even when we think that we're saying the most positive aspects to it. We try to negify it. We try to add this criticism to it. So we never allow it a space to actually flourish and learn. A lot of times for myself, in earlier healing work, it was like I saw myself doing this. I saw myself putting myself in a position where I would be like, yo, but you don't understand that you gotta... All I was doing was hindering myself. All I was doing was hindering myself. All I was doing was providing a crutch. Because just like when you think about a child, your inner child work, being gentle with your inner child, being open with your inner child, that's what you're going to be doing in this process. That antagonistic feeding, this being salty, you not getting your way. These are all aspects of your inner child being triggered. You not getting your way, you feeling salty about something, you frustrated, you angered, you want to sequester the urge. That's all the inner child. This is all aspects of the inner child, the layers of the inner child that need to be healed. It's going to keep coming up until you deal with it. I remember these things kept coming up until I dealt with them. Until I removed the first layer, which was my identity. The second layer was the biases. The third layer, the fourth layer, and I kept going further and further in. I noticed that's how I had to go further and further in. That's one of the hardest processes for it. Like, I don't want to go through this. I don't want to do that part. Do I have to do this part? Yes. I'm always going to tell you yes. Can I avoid it? No. I'm always going to tell you no. Because that's what's going to unlock that trigger. This antagonistic field, that antagonist feeding is what creates what we're getting in this Friday, what we're getting into this Friday, the piety society. Living inside of a bias, living inside of this dome that it's a difference between avoiding and mastering. It's easy for one to master. It's easy for one to have the illusion of mastering based on avoidance. That means it's easy for me to say, yo, I'm not having sex or I'm going into this state of celibacy if I avoid the temptation instead of learning how to cycle my energy. Because that's what that's there for. It's easy for you to sit here and say, yo, I'm going to lose this much weight. That means I'm going to stop eating. You're removing the ability to cycle and learn. Every time that you sit here, you want to detox, you want to lose weight, you want to, whatever you're wanting to do, it all goes synonymous to the same rhythm. You're not starving yourself. You're learning how to eat. You're going from eating just to be and eating to live. You're learning to apply, not just learning to react. These are all of those layers that if every time you avoid it, you get a happy distraction. You get something that you can now feed through based on the antagonistic sense. Even if you want to say even if you say, oh, I'm pro-black, that means you're going to be antagonist. That means you're still going to use antagonistic feeding. Regardless. Because you chose one side over the other. The key to your mastery, the key to you coming into and really attracting all that you desire, bringing into that mastery of what you desire, what you're trying to tap into for real, is to not avoid. Not avoid. Stop avoiding the wound. Stop avoiding the neglection wound. Stop avoiding the abandonment wounds. Stop avoiding these rejection wounds. Stop avoiding these aspects and then using later on just to go feed off somebody else. Stop trying to. I know, because I used to do it all the time. That was one of the biggest things. One of my biggest wounds that I was always trying to avoid was my rejection wound. So I would feed through an antagonist aspect of rejection. Always feeding through it. I would use the antagonist feeding through my rejection wound. So if somebody didn't listen to what I said, it went from people not listening to me to me saying things purposely to make people not want to listen to me. And then I would say, ooh, I was being real. That's what it sounds like. You sound hurt. Every time that you say it, for some and not all, because sometimes you need to do it. Sometimes it's actually needed for it to do it in that space. Spirit gonna lead you to do it. But sometimes when you're sitting here saying, I'm just trying to be the realist and trying to maintain an identity, you can hear your hurt through that identity. That anger is really sorrow. That anger is contracted to your sadness. That void, that pit that you have not dealt with yet. Yo, I'm just trying to speak for all my people. I'm no longer trying to speak for my people. Because the reflection of my aptitudes of my people, we're in a healed space. I'm no longer going to use the narrative of family will bring you down. It's an old narrative. The family bring you down, bro. No, I don't believe that. Because that means there's something I need to deal with in that space instead of avoiding it. Yo, you know how women aren't loyal. Bitches ain't loyal. Okay. No, I don't believe that. There's something that I need to deal with in that space. That's why it keeps coming up. Stop avoiding the triggers. Everything is triggering you is something that you got to deal with. It's something that you got to learn. If it's experience, it's going to be emotional. If it's making you feel like, why don't I feel this way? It's based on an observation. It's time to learn you. The number one person, that number one relationship that you want this year to be the number one relationship is going to be in that shadow work. Who you need to learn, what you need to learn, what you need to accept, what you need to forgive, what you need to learn, where you need to release, where's the healing and recovery going to start, and how you're going to lead to it. I want you to be the fucking best. Tonight, the God Hour Show, we're going to get a little bit deeper into this topic and live readings and all that good stuff. So you stay tuned for that, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the God Hour Show. Stay tuned for the aspects of that. And for more, if you're ready for that consultation, you say, I really need to start doing my work. I really need to start doing my healing work. I need to stop making these excuses. GodaCoAlchemistLLC.com, or you can inbox me, DM me, inbox or DM me for the details on that. And all other products, all other services, inbox, DM me, or you can hit me at GodaCoAlchemistLLC.com, because I just want you to be the fucking best. There's no more excuses. There's no more excuses till you get into the best version of you. There's no more excuses stopping you from taking full ownership. There's no more excuses and that's stopping you. There's no more excuses. It's always been lessons. I love you. We love us. Ashe.